Every single creator starts their career wearing all of the hats. They're never just the videographer, the editor, the creative director, they're all of it all at once. But I can say after wearing multiple hats and running my own production company for over 5 years, there's one thing that I really learned. All of the magic happens in the editing room. You can have Hollywood level footage to work with, but if you're not a great editor, it's gonna be mediocre at best. Now on the flip side, a great editor can take even decent footage and make something completely magical with it. My goal is that by the end of this video, you'll know how to be a more effective and efficient editor, and you'll walk away with a few small tips that will make a huge difference in the final product. So to achieve this goal, we're gonna be starting from scratch to create a high quality, clean, easy to watch reel for one of our higher paying clients. We're gonna be learning how to create this. So let's just go ahead and get started right away. I'm gonna be using DaVinci Resolve. You can use any software. I would highly recommend learning DaVinci Resolve as it is free and you don't need the paid version until you really get into more intense editing, which I don't even use. And I feel like I'm able to accomplish almost anything I want to in the editing room, especially anything that I really need to for my clients right now. Now, of course, I always wanna get better, but that's not something that we really need to be worrying about right now. So again, I highly recommend learning DaVinci. It's very easy. I was on Premiere for 5 or 6 years, moved over here and quickly became a more efficient editor in this space. It's the way I like to describe it is it's kind of the difference between Android and Apple. Now, Android is not a big problem. There's nothing wrong with it. I also had an Android most of my life, but moving over to Apple, you find that it's just a cleaner, more simple, more elegant ecosystem. And that's exactly what we get here with DaVinci Resolve. So as you can see, there are some things in this project already because I was already editing some videos, but don't let that discourage you. We're gonna go ahead and start on a clean slate. I'm just gonna go ahead and open a new bin, YouTube video, edit. So now you can see we don't have anything in here. It's like a fresh project, just as if you just downloaded DaVinci. Now I use a solid state drive to hold all of my footage. However you do it totally works, but I would recommend eventually getting a solid state drive so you can keep all of the footage and create cooler projects in the future with the footage that you have. So Ryan is one of our more premium clients. He pays a premium for higher quality content, and that's why he is here in studio. Just differs between the people who are getting more basic content and the people who are getting studio level content, and that's Ryan. And so you can see on December 10th, we just had a shoot with him, and I have it organized into 4 different categories, which was just the places that we shot. So the first one was at a fitness center. So I'm just gonna go ahead and highlight all of these and then move them into the timeline here. Now this might look confusing, but it's really not. It's just as simple as dragging and dropping the footage on the timeline. And you can do that in anything. You can do that in iMovie, you can do that in CapCut, you can do that on Premiere or here in DaVinci. So don't let it confuse you or stress you out. Literally just dropping stuff into the timeline, however you wanna do that. You don't have to do it the same way that I did. And then over here at Kiln, we're gonna do the same thing. Go ahead and just drag and drop. And I just like to leave a little bit of a space so I can see that there is a difference between the locations and know how close I'm getting in the sifting process. So now we're over at the temple. Go ahead and get and drag and drop these 2. And then the last spot was here with the Tesla. So I'm gonna go drag and drop those. So this sifting process is pretty simple. I have my keyboard set up in a way where I can just chop off the end of the clip. And then if I hit Command Z, it'll undo that. And then I can come up here, chop off the front of the clip, and then undo that as well if I don't want that. So the way that I'll do that is, let's just go over to a clip where there's a lot of movement. You can see that right here, it's nice and smooth. You have the front runner going in the back, this little train back here. And so maybe I want to start where I can see the train. And then I'm going to scrub all the way to where it ends. So you can see it ends right there. Say I just want that shot, and then I'm going to go ahead and then chop off the back end. Now again, in your software, you can just hit cut, and then you can delete this other part if you want. But it's just a lot faster to get your keyboard set up to where you can just chop off the back end. So there's the front, there's the back, and you go ahead and do that with every single clip before you even start. And you can see this clip isn't totally smooth all the way through. It gets smooth right about here. And so I'm gonna wanna cut off the beginning of that and then scrub. Okay, it still looks smooth, and then cut that. And so by the end of this sifting process, you're gonna just go ahead and go through all of these clips And if you do it right, by the end of this sifting process, you're only going to be left with clips that are good and usable. And that's kind of the whole point of starting with sifting at first. Like you can see right here, I'm a little shaky, so I'll move to where I'm just smooth and then only chop off that usable footage. So I just go ahead and do that with all of the clips. Okay, as you can see, I just barely got done sifting all of these clips. And at the beginning of this, we had 26 minutes of footage. And now that we're done sifting through everything, we have only 5 minutes worth of footage. And 5 minutes is still a lot of good footage to work with. That's ultimately what you want to do, is look through every second that's recorded, chop off the stuff that's not worth using, and then only be left with the best of the best. And the better you can become at this, the better you can become at saying no to some spots and yes to only the best, the better your video is ultimately going to be. So now the next step is figuring out what song you want to use or what song the client wants you to use. So for me, the way that I get my songs is this client, Ryan in this case, he sends me videos on Instagram that inspired him and he wants me to use those audios. So we have this one right here. So he really liked that audio. Obviously, we're not going to be making the video the same because we don't have all this lifestyle content with Ryan the way that we see in this video. So even if he's inspired by this, we can't promise him that we're gonna make that content if we don't have the content to work with, right? And that's one thing that I've noticed with this client and with many clients is that they often ask for something that just can't necessarily be accomplished. And so you need to figure out what it is about that video that inspired them. Because in this case, he loves the lifestyle aesthetic, he loves all those clips, obviously because they're inspiring, but ultimately, the thing that he really is trying to do is to inspire people. And so you kind of have to ask yourself, okay, how can I inspire people without showing them super epic clips? And who is his target market? And so for Ryan, he's trying to appeal to people who are putting their head down, working, and just, I guess, religious. Like those are probably his main pillars. Like they're grinders, they are trying to build some business, and they care about faith. And so we have him at the gym, we have him working, and then we have him at the temple. And so the question is, how can we inspire those people to want to go to the temple more, or to want to work harder and be a part of that? Because the better that we can do at making the viewer feel like the hero, the better of a connection they're going to have with our client. And if we can do a good job at making our client's audience feel connected to our client, then they're going to keep coming back and ultimately allow us the opportunity to become better at editing, at doing what we want to do, and have more of a client success story. When it comes to good editing, there's a lot more that goes into it than just what's going on in the editing room. I think to first start with the psychology and ask, why is it that they want this video? What are they trying to accomplish with this? And then trying to do that for them is the most important thing that you can do. So this video is not very long, and you'll probably see, as I was just talking there at the beginning, I clipped off the front and end of this audio. You can see there's a little gap right there, and that's where I scrolled, so the audio ended. So we're gonna go ahead and just chop that to where it's just the audio we wanna work with. So now that we have the footage that we wanna work with, I always like to listen to the audio 1 or 2 times and just make sure that I'm getting on the same page with how I ultimately want this to be. So let's go ahead and just listen and hear what we can imagine. Okay, so as you can hear, this is something that could have a ton of clips, or it could have just a few simple clips, or it could be a hybrid of both. Now, the point isn't to come in here and to hurry and create an edit as fast as possible. The point is to, again, lean into the feeling that he's trying to create, which is inspiring his audience. So it doesn't matter if you end up putting in 1 clip, or if it's 10 clips or 100 clips, and it doesn't matter if it takes you 10 minutes or if it takes you 10 hours. The only thing that matters is that we're accomplishing the feeling that he wants his viewers to feel, which in this case is, again, being inspired. So I think remembering that will be crucial when helping us create content that's going to resonate with Ryan. And so let's just go ahead and take a look at the examples that I've done in the past. So this is one that I just barely finished for him earlier today. Said that I can't, but I know that I can. If I could do it, then why can't you? Get up and make it work. Ain't no way that I'm sitting around this now or never. I'm picking a fight. So in that example, you can see it kind of looks intense, but the way that I started with it was honestly just a few clips. And then I after watching it, I was like, okay, that doesn't really feel like it's where it needs to be. So I started adding some text, and then I still felt like that wasn't exactly where I wanted it to be. So I added a few more clips, added a couple of transitions, added some keyframing, and then it really felt like it came together. Now, again, that might be something that feels like it's intimidating, but it's important to remember that this wasn't all in my head before I even started the video. This came along little by little. So you just create a nice, easy foundation, and then you just make it better from there. So again, let's go ahead and listen to this music. So I'm just gonna stop it right there. I don't know if you can hear this very clearly, but at the beginning of this video, you can hear that there are a couple sound effects that were added in this audio, and that's a good opportunity to add in a couple of quick clips as a visual hook. So go ahead and listen to this. Can you hear that? Sounds like there's like maybe 3 or 4 sound effects, which means 4 or 5 clips. And so what we're gonna do is we're just gonna go and start right after that, so we don't have to worry about making that a tense sequence right now. So it really starts like right there. Yep, so we're gonna go ahead and just start it right around here, right at like 0.15 seconds, and then we'll come back to that in a sec. So let's go ahead and listen again to the audio. So it's saying, what the song is saying is, where have you been? And so we want to get into, again, the minds of the people that we were trying to edit the video for, which is in this case, Ryan. And you have to ask yourself, why did they use this audio? Where have you been? And what can we do to make this inspiring? And how are we trying to move these people along? And so in this case, where have you been? It's probably talking about work, probably talking about going to the temple, and probably talking about exercising, because those are all things that are hard, but once you do them, you can see how they are impactful to your life. And so where have you been? Let's try to just include everything that he wants to share with his audience all in this one video. Okay, so again, we're trying to think about the where have you been all my life mentality. What are the things that he's trying to include? Running is probably one of those things. So let's just get a couple of clips of him working out, doing ropes right here. Another shot of him doing ropes. We can add those together to tell more of a story. I'm just gonna go ahead and move the music down here so we have a little bit more room on the timeline to work with. The way that I do it over here is you'll see that I have this clip of him using the ropes, and then this other clip of him using the ropes. I haven't decided which order I want to put these in, so I kind of just stack them on top of each other and allow myself some room to work on that later. So got some good clips of him working out there. So in this case, I'm just gonna choose like 3 workouts. So we've got running, we've got ropes, and then let's just choose one more. Running, ropes, and let's just do like these mountain climbers. So what I'm gonna do now is I already know that I wanna start incorporating more of the other stuff that we've shot. And I'm gonna just grab all of these clips from the gym, and I'm just gonna move them to the very back because I don't wanna work with those anymore, and I don't want them to get in the way. So another thing that I would say is, because we're doing this whole where have you been mentality, because we're trying to lean into that lifestyle of trying to accomplish things and trying to inspire people, we're not gonna inspire people by just showing a video of him in his Tesla. Because honestly, and people don't say this enough, it's a harsh truth, but people only care about themselves. And it's not necessarily in a selfish way, it's just that that's just us as humans. People don't really think about other people. They're not gonna look at Ryan and be like, oh my gosh, like I love this guy. What they're thinking is, I love this guy because he reminds me of myself. So if it's just a video of a guy looking cool and there's nothing that reminds you of yourself, there's nothing aspirational or inspirational about it, then it's not really gonna connect. So we're gonna get these clips of him in his Tesla because it just doesn't really fit the vibe right here. And we're gonna also move those out of the way. Now, here's some clips of him with his Tesla working, and that might be able to do the trick. But again, we're trying to lean into that idea of where have you been, just like the song says. And so one of those things that really connect with people, those deep rooted, where have you been? I think that's definitely gonna be the temple, or just something religious. And so for him, his target audience is people who are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so we're gonna go and look at, what falls under that umbrella. And that's gonna be the temple, that's gonna be the scriptures. And so let's just pick a couple good clips of him rolling through the scriptures. I like this one right here because there's a lot of movement and it's consistent. It's got good flow. So I'm just gonna lift this up right here. Okay, I like that clip. I'm not gonna do anything with it yet. I'm just gonna lift it up, reminding myself I like that clip. This one is similar, but it's not quite as good. So we're just gonna go ahead and delete that. He's kind of pointing at the pages here, reading. That might be a good addition to tell the story of him flipping over the pages and then reading. And something that you've probably noticed so far is I've probably talked a lot about telling the story. Now, when you watch a 10, 15 second Instagram video, you're probably not thinking that you're watching a story, but a lot of times the reason that you like the video that you're watching is because it is telling a story. And so that's what we're trying to accomplish for the viewers. We want to walk them through this story. We don't want to just put a compilation of random clips. And at one point that did work. I would say in 2020 to 2022, you could just use a lot of cool looking clips and put them together because it was something that nobody had seen before. But now so many of us have seen these cool clips so many times that it's not just about getting cool footage anymore. It's about cool footage mixed with a story so people resonate with that thing. And even now, people have been able to tell stories and connect so many times that they're looking for the next thing. And that's why we're diving into not just a cool story, but a cool story that people can see themselves in, which in this case is reading the scriptures. And again, you might think, okay, well, what about the people who don't read the scriptures? What about the people who aren't religious? And that's a great question. And the truth is we just don't want to include those people. We don't want to try to include those people because that's not the person that we're trying to appeal to. And so we have to ask ourselves, if I add this clip in here, will it make other people scroll? And the answer is yes, and that's totally okay. So be willing to be okay with putting stuff in that you know isn't going to appeal to everybody, because religion in general isn't going to appeal to everyone, especially something like the Book of Mormon or an LDS temple. That is even more niche. And that means more people aren't going to like it, but it also means that those who do like it are going to connect with it on a much deeper level. So again, I just want to say something from, so I'm sure you guys have heard of Mr. Beast. Of course you have. He has a team of about 500 employees. And the head honcho over there at Beast Industries, the videographer, the creative mind, the point of making a great film isn't to make a great edit. The point of making a great film is to tell a great story. And so again, that's just coming back to the thing that we've already said, which is we're not just trying to make a cool edit. We're trying to create something that really makes people feel something. And that's why this type of editing takes so much longer. Because if you're used to just throwing clips together, then you ask yourself, okay, well, I just barely spent 5 or 15 or 30 minutes on that video. How is it that this video that looks almost the same took 3 or 5 or 6 hours? And the answer is because it's thoughtful and there is flow behind what you're watching. And most of the time it's hard to see because it's subconscious. And so again, that's just, a long way to say that create a good story, and it's going to make a big difference for the client and for the people who is watching their content. So again, flipping open the pages, looking at this chapter that he's specifically reading. And I actually asked him when filming this, I said, hey, what's your favorite chapter of the Book of Mormon? And he said, oh, definitely Jacob. So we opened to Jacob, and then that way, as he feels the page, it means more to him. He's not just pointing at a random page. This is actually something that means more to him. And it's something that he resonates with. And so if anyone was to ever say like, hey dude, I noticed in your video you were in the Book of Jacob, I love that. He's not just gonna lose them and be like, oh yeah, no, I don't really know much about it. Because at that point he would be seen as just like a poser, essentially. And we don't wanna make our clients look like a poser, even if they are. And I'm not saying that he is, I'm just saying our job is to make them look as good as they actually are. And if we're making them look like a poser, or if they get in a situation where they're like that, then it's gonna make them look dumb. And we don't want to do that for them because we're ultimately trying to help them level up in life. So again, just something simple is just trying to pull real emotion out of the real life filming and then also out of the edits. So I really like that he starts filling the pages right here. So you can see his fingers kind of fiddling around right here. Same with my camera. But right about here, he starts to smoothly go in one direction, and then I start to film smoothly in one direction. And so those are the things that we kind of want to capture, like right there. Something else I really, really want to make note of is that if you go into the metadata, and I know you can do this on every software, But if you go into the metadata or right click and say like frame rate, you can see up here, it says 120 FPS. And there's 24 frames per second, which is what FPS stands for. Our eyes see at 24 frames per second. So if something is shot in 120 frames per second, that means you could slow it down by 5 times and it wouldn't be choppy. So we could go over to the speed and we could change that to a 20. And then you can see now it's 5 times slower than it actually was. Now you can't do that with every clip because not every clip is shot at 120 frames a second. And that's why it's important that you look for the frame rate. Now, of course, you don't have to look at the frame rate. You could just assume, like on something like this, I know for sure since I shot it that it wasn't shot at 120 frames a second. But let's say that you just try to do 20% speed. You'll see that it's really choppy. Let's go back to it. See, it's kind of just choppy and not smooth. And so that's another way to just play around with it. But let's go ahead and start putting this video together. So again, ultimately what we're trying to do is to find clips that are going to resonate with this audio. So where have you been fitness, where have you been faith, and where have you been work? Because those are things that bring him and his audience fulfillment. So now we have some of those clips. Now let's kind of arrange them on the timeline. All right, so let's go ahead and take this footage of him reading the scriptures. And then see, the only issue that I have with these is you'll see that so far, and these are the things that you have to pay attention to that make the difference between a really clean, smooth video and one that could definitely use some work. And again, being a good editor, being a good videographer, or being able to create a good product doesn't have anything to do with actually being a good editor, like good at editing and making things look crazy and CGI and all that, or having super nice camera. It has everything to do with what you're willing to say no to. And so this might be one of those situations because you can see all of these so far are landscape shots, and then it goes straight to this. So one thing I want to mention about editing and just being a good editor in general is understanding that editing is problem solving. And the better that you can be at problem solving, the better you can be as an editor. And so in this case, it's like if I'm zooming this in and that moves, but I don't want it to, like say I wanted to have a tighter crop right here, but it moves the whole thing and then it's inconsistent with these. How do I solve that problem, right? Because that's a problem and I need to solve it. And that's what editing is, it's just solving problems. So now you can see I created a solid color for the top and the bottom. So the crop is all consistent. As you see, we scrub through this and you don't see any of the pixels going out of line. It's all consistent and smooth no matter how fast we scrub. And that's exactly what we want. And then on top of that, you could go over to one of these clips, like I was saying before, say I wanted to crop in on this. As you zoom it in, it stays cropped because we have these solid color black bars on it. See, now if I remove them, you can see that it's still zooming in, but these bars just prevent you from seeing that. And that's what keeps it clean. Because if I turn these off and I zoom through, you can just see that one of the clips just pops up right there, you know, and it just doesn't look super smooth. And so again, that's just a really easy way to keep that landscape crop without really worrying about having to crop every single clip perfectly. So now what we're gonna do is we're just gonna go ahead and make sure that the flow of the video continues to go in the direction that it's headed, which is telling the story, where have you been work, where have you been gym, and now where have you been faith. So we're just gonna go ahead, I'm just gonna choose a couple different clips and tell that story. All right, so we have the body of work put together now. You can kind of see how the story is being told. And again, when I say telling a story, I think it's really easy to overthink that and try to make, you know, characters and problems and a solution and all of that, because that's what makes a good story. But ultimately, we're just bringing these guys along and helping them visualize what our life looks like, what Ryan's life looks like, and that's telling the story of his life. So it doesn't necessarily have to be an entire story arc. It doesn't have to be the rising action, the falling action, the resolution, and all those things. It can simply just be a part of his life, and seeing that he's going to the gym and going to the temple and stuff is showing that that's a part of his life. And it's giving these little pieces of the narrative that help people want to be a part of that. And that's why people eventually follow, because they have that open loop and they want to close it. They want to see the end. And so when somebody sees, okay, he's working hard in the gym and he's working hard on his faith, I want to see if doing these things ultimately gives him the result that he wants, because if it does, then that means it might do the same for me. And so people will follow because it creates that open loop. So I'm going to go ahead and just show you the body of work that we've created, and then we'll dive a little bit more into how to make it better. Okay, so you can see it's not bad at all, right? Let's go ahead and just watch this one more time. Okay, not too bad. I mean, obviously it needs some color grading, but overall, like, it's a pretty good set of clips that are put together. So as you can see, starting right here, adjusting his camera, working. Now he's at the gym, doing some ropes. Now he's at the temple, flipping through some scriptures. And all together, that's not bad. But at the same time, if you really think about it from a viewer's perspective, if you're scrolling on the Instagram feed and you see this, would you watch this? And I don't know about you, but the answer for me is probably no. And if I was going to watch it, maybe I'd watch half of it. I'd probably see this first couple clips and be like, okay, that's sick. I can tell that he's up to something cool, but I don't really care, right? And so you have to find a way to make it a little bit more interesting. And this is where we're going to kind of bring together this beginning part. Now let's turn on the music again so you can hear this sound one more time. So it sounds like it's multiple clips that are being put together. And so what we're gonna do for that visual hook is I'm gonna grab all of these clips, I'm gonna hit Option, and if you hold Option while you drag all of these, then you can copy all of these clips, right? And so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna right click, and again, the process, the way that I'm doing this might not be the same on your editing software, but every editing software can do all of these things, even if it takes a little bit longer. So the point, again, isn't to do the things the way that I'm doing them, it's to accomplish what we're ultimately trying to accomplish. And so right now, what we're trying to accomplish is a strong visual hook. And so say copying what I'm doing right now, if that takes too long, or if you don't know how to do that, that's okay. You don't have to worry about doing what I'm doing. What you do have to worry about is accomplishing a strong visual hook. So that could be a zoom in, that could be just putting text on screen, that could be using a clip that makes people want to watch more. In my case, I just want to use a selection of clips together to kind of snap people out of the scrolling mind. And so what I'm going to do is I just right clicked on all of these clips and I'm going to go change clip duration. And then in the clips, I'm going to, again, I said 24 frames is 1 second. And so we're going to make that like 1/4 of a second, or maybe even a little bit less. So let's put it as at 6 frames. Now 6 frames is 1/4 of a second. So I'm going to hit change. And then if I hit Command D, then it's going to bring all those clips together. But you can see that that's still almost, 4 seconds, 5 seconds worth, and we only have an 8-second video. And so I'm going to right click again, and I'm going to go change duration. And I'm now even going to make these 2 frames. And so now this is literally 1/12 of a second. And now you can see they're a lot smaller. And so what we're going to do is we're going to grab all these clips that we just barely took. We're going to bring them to the beginning. And because we already saw this as the first frames, we're going to delete these frames of him. And again, what I did was I just copied all the clips on the timeline. I just made them shorter. And now I'm bringing them to the front. And we don't want them to look like the same clips. And so we're just going to delete every other to give like a foreshadowing of what the viewers are going to see in this story. So let's do one of him on the treadmill, one of him doing ropes, and then we'll do one of him reading scriptures. Now the temple would be a decent thing for that, but I've already used the temple as a visual hook in another video. And again, those are the types of things you want to think about so you don't make the viewers think that you don't really care about your content and you're just trying to put stuff together. Because that's not what we do at Hive Studio. What we do is we create really, really good content that feels fresh every single time. And ultimately, the goal, the standard that we're trying to achieve is, would we post this on our feed, and is every single one of these videos worth $1,000 alone? And if it's not worth $1,000, then we have to keep trying to push the video a little bit until we feel like it's worth that. Now, another way I like to think about it is, say we have like a brick and mortar, a place where all of us editors, videographers, the founders, say there's a place where all of us work. Now, the first thing you see when you walk in through the store is a big screen, and it's playing the content that you created on that screen. Think about it that way, because if you know that every single time you walk into work, it's gonna have a video that you made, you're not gonna want to see work that you're not proud of. You're only gonna wanna see work that you are proud of. So try to think about it in that light. And of course, it is more energy, it is more effort, and there's no doubt about that. But ultimately, this is what we wanted to do. And what a privilege it is that we have to have a little bit of pressure in the job that we once dreamed of having. And so now we have these few clips. I don't know how they look together, but I'm gonna assume that they, feel somewhat good. So let's check it out. So you can see right there, you don't really see what's going on, but it kind of snaps you out of your scroll. There are a couple clips that just hit really hard, and then you wanna see what else is going on. So immediately you can tell this first clip, you don't really know what it is because it's so fast. But then once it hits here, you realize it's just a repeat of what these clips already were. So what I would do to solve that problem is I would highlight these and then I would hit flip. And so now it's going the opposite direction. And it's something very simple, but your brain is not going to think that it's the same clip. Watch this. It just doesn't feel like the same clip as it was. And something else you can do is you can just zoom in to kind of change that clip again. So let's try that. Right? It feels so much better. So now here's the other thing. Of course, we need to color grade it still, but it still kind of feels a little bit boring, right? Let's just go ahead and watch it through. I'm gonna mute it so I can talk over it. So you have the visual hook, which is cool, but then right here already, it's just like, I don't know, it's repetitive, it's kind of boring. So how can we spice that up? I would highlight all of these. If you right click and hit new compound clip, that will bring them all into one clip. So I'm just gonna name this intro. You don't necessarily have to name it, but I do. And so in this clip, now all three of those clips are now put into one clip. And what you can do is you can create something called keyframes. Now, I don't know if you can do this on CapCut. I'm sure you can, or maybe they have some sort of zoom transition, but I like to have control over the keyframes because you can have control over how the video really, really looks and feels and flows. So I'm gonna hit this diamond, and this diamond is going to tell the video to start right there. And so we're gonna go to the end of this clip, and then we're going to use the position and zoom it in. And as you see, as I move this, it turned on that red diamond again, which means it activated the end part of that clip that we just made. So I'm gonna zoom it in just a little bit so it's not too aggressive. Now we're gonna play this through, and now you can see it zooming as it's changing clips, and everything else is still the same. So it looks super chill. Now the reason I compounded this, the reason I made this all one clip, is because if you keyframed in and out of all of these, it would just repeat at the start and it wouldn't feel like it had very good flow. And so you can see it smoothly goes in right there. And sometimes I like to think of building out a video as natural and organic as possible. And a way to do that is to think about what is natural and what's organic. And this is kind of like it's breathing in, right? It's getting closer. And so you want to ask, okay, if this is breathing in, what would be the next organic move? Now, if you kept zooming in the whole time, that would be fine. But it wouldn't really feel any more special than just keeping the clips the same. And so think about it like breathing in and out, right? So this clip right here is breathing in. Now let's grab these two clips together. Let's compound those. And sometimes I'll do each clip individually so it feels a little bit more flowy. But for the sake of time and for this video and you guys just seeing how to do it quickly, it's still effectively, we're just gonna compound those. So zooming this in again, keyframe that, go to the end of the clip, then we're gonna zoom back out to 1. Right? So now watch this. Breathing in, breathing out. Okay, so it's very subtle. You don't really notice, but if you look at each frame, it's zooming out a little bit. And more movement makes a clip more interesting, whether it's the camera that's moving or whether it's you moving through keyframes. And this is why I say that editing is where the magic happens, because you can take tripod clips and you can make them look really, really cool if you know how to edit them. So again, breathe in, breathe out, and now it's back to like a standard. And so how do you make this clip interesting? And so you kind of have to ask yourself, is that clip interesting? you have to ask yourself if you actually like that clip there, and you have to be willing to say, no, I don't think that clip is very good. I think it tells a story because he's running, which is cool, but I don't know if it's really as much as I want. And so we're gonna go ahead and just move that to the side because we don't want to use that clip anymore, and we're gonna find another clip to replace it of him at the gym. So what's another good clip of him working out? Let's go see. So he's got some stuff over here, got some push-ups, we've used those, got him taking off his shirt. And so maybe we tell this story of, okay, he just got done with his run. Now he's gonna go take off his shirt and go work out. Now he's gonna go get a little more heated. And that's a good way to kind of tell that story right there. So we're gonna clip that up, we'll just drop that over the timeline. And that's also why you'll see right here on video 2, it's just open. I use that so I can just bring things in without dropping it over. Because if you just drop it over a clip like this, it literally deletes that whole clip and it's gone, right? And so, again, if you hit Command Z, it'll undo it. But that's why I have this open right here. So I just match it. So now let's check this out. Breathe in, breathe out, taking off shirt. Okay, now he's grinding. And I actually like that there's no movement in this clip because it's super intense, right? Intense, going in, going out. Now it's just a nice still shot. And then it goes to being intense again. And so it's almost like a pattern, right? Super intense, chill movement, chill. So we got super intense, we got some chill movement right here, no movement, and then intense movement again. And then right here, these are cool clips, but they're not, again, exactly where I want them to be. So let's go ahead and create some keyframes right here. And then because these are more breathe-in shots, I wonder how good it would look if we did a breathe out on the temple. Okay, so create a keyframe on the end here again. And you really want to focus on the main point, right? So I'm gonna go literally, in this case, the point of the temple because you don't want to crop that out, it just looks weird. So zoom in on that. And then if you go back to the very end, then you can zoom back out. And you want to avoid making sure it leaves that black, otherwise, you know, see how it starts to carry down? You want to avoid that. You want to make sure it's all in the frame. Okay, so we did the movements, we did the keyframes. Now let's see what that does for us. Actually, let's throw on some music and let's see what that does for us. So you can already see just by adding some keyframes, just by making things a little more cohesive and telling the story, being intentional about what's actually happening in the video, it makes it really, really interesting. That just went from being a basic video that just looks like somebody threw something together to gather views to actual craftsmanship. And that last part probably took me, I mean, 8 or 10 minutes with explaining it. And when you get this flow down without explaining it, I mean, you can knock that out what I just did in 2 minutes, 3 minutes, especially after some practice. So, and then if you're learning, it might take 30 minutes, maybe even an hour to learn keyframes because you have to figure out how your software works. And that's totally okay. It's okay to take time to learn something and to recognize that just because it took an hour when you learned it doesn't mean it's going to take an hour every time. So again, let's just take a look at this one more time because I really like where it's at. So let's just see if it's ready for color grading. Beautiful. I think that's super, super sick. And of course, there's always more that we can do. There's little effects that we can add in, but it feels really natural and clean like we want it to, and we don't want to overdo it. And there are a lot of easy ways to overdo it, and we don't want to do that because that's, again, what makes that's what separates an amateur from a true professional. So now let's go over into the coloring tab. And now I know in Premiere, it's not a coloring tab. You just color grade on the spot. And this node system might be a little unfamiliar, but it's nothing to fear. It's just a different way to do things. So I have a LUT for him, so I'm gonna go ahead and put that on. All right, so I just went ahead and applied the LUT. You can see right here we have 5 nodes. Again, don't let nodes stress you out. It just means I'm using 5 different layers to create this look. And it's not really a big deal. You can just drag and drop on your software. All right, so this is ultimately what the look is giving us right now. So let's just break it down in order. So starting off, this is our first LUT. It's kind of just making it from the flat log to a little bit more contrast. This changes the color a little bit. makes it a little bit darker here. This is some S curves to bring in some more contrast. And ultimately, this is some fine tuning right here. And I don't love the fine tuning. And so I'm going to put just another S curve in there because I just want a little more contrast. So one of the things that Ryan has talked about is he says he loves the dark aesthetic. Now, it's your job as the editor and as the creator, especially when you have clients coming on, it's your job to be able to distinguish what they're trying to say. And to not get frustrated from them not knowing what they're talking about. So when they say, hey, I want the dark aesthetic, it might be frustrating because for you, you're like, dude, the dark aesthetic could mean a million different things. And so it's your job to look at the inspo that he's talking about and be like, okay, this is what he means, and then to try to achieve that look. And I want to emphasize try to achieve that look because it might be stressful because your first impression might be, I don't know how to do that. And so you're afraid you're going to fall short and not deliver what the person wants. And that's totally okay because we all have to learn how to get the look that we want. And that's why some creators are so distinguishable because they've spent time creating that look that they didn't once have. And that's what we're doing here. So I like what we're bringing together here. It might be a little bit like warmer than his vibe, but let's just go ahead and try to apply this look across the board. So I can just grab this clip and then I can hit copy and then paste that across those. So let's see how this looks all together with the color. So it's looking pretty sick, but you can see some inconsistencies. It's really bright in some areas, it's really dark and contrasty in others, almost unflattering. And then it's really blue right here, where in other areas it's really warm. So now we just really have to figure out how to bring that all together and really give it the look that we want to give. All right, you guys, so we are just nearing the end. I kind of just went in and colored it a little bit. You'll notice in some areas it doesn't look perfect, like right off the bat on this first frame. That white isn't a true white, but it ultimately gets the vibe and feeling across what we're going for. So I think a lot of times editors make the mistake that they just need to make things look like they actually look, when in reality, you want to make it look like the feeling that you're trying to accomplish. So in this case, he wants it to be aesthetic, inspiring, and he wants it to feel good and chill and cohesive. And the way that we achieved that was by kind of tuning the look a little bit and ultimately taking it away from what it initially looked like right out of camera. And that's totally okay. And so let's go ahead and just take a look at how this final product turned out, and then we'll talk about it a little bit. All right, so let's go ahead and watch just one more time. Visual hook, breathe in, breathe out, some fitness, over to the temple and faith, and then finishing off with the white chart of the temple. And so you'll notice that the clips all look pretty cohesive. We're tapping into the different things that he's trying to really show. And then the next thing that you'll notice that I added is the text. And so again, you're probably looking at this thinking, I don't know how to do that clip where it goes back and forth with the text where it kind of introduces itself. And again, that doesn't really matter. What does matter is that you're accomplishing the look of, okay, this is kind of interesting. What's it going to say next? And that's kind of what I do there. So you could do it word by word. You could do one word at a time. Doesn't really matter. But this is the final product. So let's go ahead and watch it just one more time. All right, you guys, so that's a wrap. I'm sure I didn't talk as much about the specifics as you were hoping and how to actually accomplish the look. But I hope that me sharing these principles with you and the idea behind how I'm actually putting these videos together, I hope it gives you just a little bit of an insight of how to start walking towards these cleaner products that you're trying to really get. And again, this is a lesson of how you can accomplish what a client wants in any aspect. And so again, I'm really trying to lean more into teaching you how to fish rather than giving you a fish. And I would love to give you a fish and tell you exactly how I did all of these things, but I didn't want to have to create the look and then teach you how to do it for every single client. Instead, I wanted to give you the information that you needed, give you the skills that you needed and the idea behind it to be able to go out and do that for yourself, for your own clients, for Hive's clients, and to really just crush it. We want you guys to kill it here. We want you guys to learn something, and we want you to be a part of Hive. We want you guys to be a part of something special that we believe in. And ultimately, if you guys are ready to move on, and when you're ready to move on, we don't want it to have just been a transactional experience. We want to make sure that we added some value to you just as much as you did for us, and hopefully even more. So hopefully this gives you guys a little bit of insight. Again, it's all about the story. It's not about the edit. Thank you guys for watching. Please let me know if you have any questions. I'd be happy to hop on a call with you and even do some one-on-one lessons if necessary. Again, thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.